Welcome to Season 10 of CX in the Wild. 10 seasons of conversations with the visionaries who are reshaping the world, one experience at a time. This season, we go further into the minds of those who challenge the status quo and reimagine what's possible. And now, the adventure continues.
Welcome back to CX in the Wild here in Dubai. Second to last podcast in Dubai. I think we've done about 10 of these. And,
wow.
It's so nice to have you here, Lina. What I like to do is just start by having you tell the audience who you are and what's keeping you busy these days.
So hello everyone, I'm Lina Gallagher. In the region they call me e-commerce queen, that's the name. Yeah. But I'm actually came here 12 years ago and I helped the region to predominantly establish e-commerce stores. So it all started from the large enterprises going online. I know you'll say 12 years ago, like we were already in the US shopping, like everything was online. But here, we kind of skipped the desktop, so we went straight to mobile. And I run a company called Immerse Consulting. So we help retailers, brands, distributors, and startups now to start to go online. Everything, operations, technology, people, marketing. So I'm in charge of the P&L. And then once they start to scale their e-commerce business. So that's a consultancy business. In addition, I have a book called Winning in a Platform Economy in the GCC. So if you are international brand looking to enter this region, drop me a message. I'll send you the book. You could also find on Amazon how do you win in a platform economy when you compete with Temu, Shein, Amazon, and how do you do it, right? Because you have to establish as a brand. Whether you like the book, you don't like the book, it's the only book about this region, e-commerce. In addition, I have Global E-commerce Learning Academy. So I teach maybe not so privileged people who cannot afford maybe consultancy. How do you start e-commerce business? What's important? Where do you invest? How do you invest? So I actually openly share it and do a lot of sort of thought leadership. So maybe one day someone else sits in these two chairs, because I had great mentors when I was, let's say, a bit younger. So now it's sort of time to give back through that academy. And finally, I am a mother. I have 2 kids, James and Charlotte. James is 6, Charlotte is 4. And yeah, so pretty busy these days.
Yes. So busy. First of all, I would say congratulations, because e-commerce is central to everything everyone is going to do in business in the future everywhere in the world. And certainly having a regional expertise is great. And it is a platform economy. What I often talk to people about, and it's amazing how many people have not realized this, which is we switched over to this platform economy many years ago. 2014 in the US is when e-commerce overtook retail. So it's been about 10 years. And what I recognize more and more each day, even for the biggest brands down to the smaller brands, is customers are basically now for the vast majority of the things we do, been turned into subscribers. And so what that tells me is there's no new customers out there. So every customer, if you just basically agree with or look at the world through that lens, you have about a 17% window of opportunity for switchers. And that opportunity is split up amongst the competitors. So you're talking about a very small percentage opportunity of growth through traditional means. And so what you're doing is you're introducing it sounds like you're either giving traditional companies that have not really leveraged the platform economies a path forward. But I would also suspect that in this greater platform economy or subscription economy, you have probably a lot of experience in best practices that give your clients or your people who work with you an advantage at either accelerating their growth or creating better efficiencies, or maybe even product market fit. I'm not sure, but is that, when I describe the landscape, how true is what I'm saying, or how off? I'd just love to know.
So you're absolutely right in terms of the clients. I cover everything from grocery to luxury, sort of like a super luxury, and where we can't rely, on Black Friday discounting to, let's say, generate that demand. And on top of it, we compete. Even if you take traditional retail, traditional brands, even if they don't compete amongst each other, like let's say, that you say, like, I don't want to compete, I am better at A, B, or C. The newcomers, every single day, we have a copycat on every single street globally that is trying to be you. So even if you made it, you survived the platform economy, you're still scaling, you're still doing well. The first thing is like, there are some people that are stealing your market share just by copying what you're doing it and by doing it cheaper, okay? So that's the one problem. Second problem is addressing what you're saying in terms of how do we tackle and what maybe role I play in that game. But second thing, the brands that we would, even if we take aside of the threats of Temu, Shane's, and, like you now in the US are trying to regulate, the whole cross-border. Europe is, you probably see it a lot of, even at European Union level, France is introducing extra tax, but all of that, if you read the news, it's coming in 2030, 2035, 2040, right? Maybe now with your new president, you will move faster. But reality of that is that even with government regulating it, the platforms, which are predominantly driven by China's economy, we have an issue that the brands might die in that time. So like you could go bankrupt, right? So how do you survive whenever everyone is kind of agreeing that we need to protect you, but we will protect you in 2030. What are we going to do between 2024 to 2030? So they are all thinking, okay, I need to tackle new markets, right? So like the growth is clearly, I'm losing market share in the US. So therefore, Dubai is a good idea. And Dubai is a great idea. UAE is a great idea. Saudi Arabia is a great idea. But the fundamental mistake that all of them make, and this is specifically, I'm Lithuanian, so I can cover Europe, and I have a lot of clients in Europe, but try to bring it in here. But I can tell you the Western world's key problem is we all think we know better. And me as a European, I can tell you, we all believe we know better. What I'm telling the brands that enter this region, because they are fighting the, let's say, platforms in the US, Europe, so there is no growth, okay? And that's the only way. So they need to look for these new venues, which Middle East is very sexy. But if you come here and you think that European or American way will work, you're completely wrong. Completely wrong. This economy, I tell the European, my clients, Europe is dot on the map compared to what we have in the Middle East. Because in the Middle East, you have all the Western brands, which are kind of clubbed together, American and European all together. In Europe, if you will say French and German the same, people are like, what? We are very different. But here everyone's like, okay, it's a Western, sort of economy. But you also have all the Eastern brands, from India, Philippines, Pakistan, China. So, and you don't have European Union to protect the borders. So anyone freely can enter here. So if you as an American brand or European brand entering here for the market opportunity, market is here. But competition, you're not necessarily competing with Temu, but you're competing with brands that are just 10 times larger than you are in India. So if they are succeeding here, how? They are succeeding here because they are acknowledging local market dynamics. What is local market? WhatsApp marketing. It's number one channel to acquire customers here. Anyone, and we met today, so maybe I don't want to generalize it, but any American or European brand I speak, they're still debating GDPR, the data protection. They're not even getting to the point, what is WhatsApp marketing? They're first of all thinking of the barriers we're putting ourselves on. Well, my friends, here, without WhatsApp marketing, you're nobody. Like you're nobody. You could be the largest in the US, but you're nobody here. So acknowledging the local dynamics, WhatsApp. Second, we all talk localization. Well, having a blonde model in the picture, it's minority. I am minority here. So you putting assets which are blonde and pretty models, yes, it's better to have any asset than no assets, so of course. But you have to acknowledge that the population here, we have every single nationality possible living in the country. So what does that mean? Is that you have to acknowledge Arabs, you have to acknowledge Indians, you have to acknowledge Filipinos, and you need to make your brand relatable to them if you want to succeed here. And you need to succeed here because over there you're fighting big platforms, okay? So my role in all of that is, first of all, I would say, forget even that they pay for consultancy and all of that, is actually even for free to educate them and to make them think, are you as a very well-established brand or just some sort of startup that sold investors a dream that you will conquer the Middle East? Are you, first of all, ready to do this? Are you ready to kind of invest money in it? and make it this market as a priority for you. And that's what my role, first of all, educate. And then if they say yes, secondly, to make it happen as fast as possible. So other competitors that are doing very similar thing like you don't steal that market. You kind of have that first move advantage. So long-winded, but that's how we look at it.
Well, I just didn't want to interrupt. Wow, you said a lot. My reaction, I've spent a lot of time myself in the e-commerce space. And you just blew through so many crucial insights that I'm very excited to share this podcast with audiences. A couple of things you are so right about. And I was in a meeting here in Abu Dhabi yesterday. And what I was trying to explain is, and this is my podcast, people can cancel me or hate me out, so I can say a couple of controversial things, but you feel free to stay safe of things. But the way I see the world, because this is my second year on a world tour, and I'm now booked for 2025 World Tour. I'm already booked until September. So I go around the world and I see what you're saying. Number one, most people have no concept, just like you're saying, most people have no concept that they're just a dot on a giant map. Like if they think the map is this big, then it's like giant map. It's like they think most business people have no concept of what's happening around the world. Number one, so I agree with you there. Number two, because they have no concept, they don't understand the truth versus reality. So I gave a keynote just last week about the perception and the reality of, and what I did was I just said, I just went to these 7 countries. Here's what people think about them, and here's the truth. And people are like, what? And I'll use Dubai as an example. You go outside Dubai, you're like, what do you think about Dubai's economy? Where's their money come from? They just instantly will say oil and luxury. And the truth is, 78% of the GDP has nothing to do with those things. And so you're right about localization is not just the culture. It is about understanding the market and how misinformed the rest of the world is about where they get their information, because they don't go to these markets. They read it online, and online people just recycle and replicate, and all the information is just the same fake story.
Yeah.
So I love that you're accurate there. The other thing that I think you said that just blew my mind, and I've never thought about this before, so thank you for enlightening me. Someone is always stealing your ideas, and you have a competitor and probably a lot of competitors. And I know in the CX world, so I do a lot of consulting globally, and I'm under NDA, so I don't talk about a lot of those things. But as a CX influencer, my audience is over 300,000 people. And it grows right now thanks to my team, which is amazing. It's growing at 25,000 or so for the last few months. And I can't tell you how many people, CX influencers, I look at and I'm like, oh, they're drafting off work that I do. Because what I try to do is only have original content. I don't try to copy anyone. I live by this phrase by the famous poet Deltron 3030, who said, copycats finish last in the human race. So I try to stay original, and I'm like on a search for honesty, and so many things that you said ring so true. You have people who are copying you, but the other thing, and this is what I really am leading up to, is I just wanted to respond and acknowledge so much. I learned, but also validated a lot of my own thoughts when you were speaking. Here's what else is happening. Misconception about e-commerce, or let's just call it platform economies. Netflix, HBO, Disney, they didn't see YouTube or TikTok coming as stealing their market share. They just didn't. And I think if you take YouTube versus the major movie studios, I think what you see right there in that case study is the complete misunderstanding of platforms, subscribers, attention, and e-commerce. You now have an ecosystem of small creators who are just devouring the bigger studios. And you seem to have a very good sensibility about how to navigate all of that. What else can you teach me today? I just want to listen.
So kind of continuing maybe on this topic and kind of connecting the subscription model and, let's say like Netflix, e-commerce and all of it in one place. One thing that I ask some people, and let's say 99.9 times, let's say, who do you think Netflix competes with? So outside of them worrying about YouTube stealing their market share, outside of copycats taking the attention from them, what's their biggest competition? And the actual answer to that is sleep. Okay. So they're competing not just amongst themselves, like sort of who is cheaper, who is better, who has the latest movie. So that's sort of given as a business, but they are competing with yours and mine sleep. Their intention is to get you on that Netflix 24/7. And that's why this whole binge watching became a concept. Why? Because they want you engaged. So if they want you engaged, even if you split the time from, let's say, between YouTube, Netflix, and then, because they can win you over by reducing the price, which is a very short-term game, in terms of that they would play. But reality is that they're competing with something that they cannot control with pricing, which is your sleep. Why they're competing, why they want you engaged in that? Because they're all acknowledging that if they get you on it, first, you make their algorithm unstoppable. So every second that you are on Netflix is, outside of making money, Netflix as an algorithm is getting smarter. So all of these thousands and millions of people globally, they're teaching their algorithm of intelligence. Secondly, coming to the local culture and local patterns and what's next. So that data that they're collecting is what's gonna make them survive for another 10, 50, 100 years. Of course, they need to use the data. And we come to the global problem, talent, and how do we use that data? So that's a separate topic that we need to even do a whole podcast on. But if that's the competition, the sleep, and if the competition is to keep you engaged and trained, how can e-commerce brands benefit from this learning? So none of the e-commerce brands have the budgets of studios, right? So they will never become YouTube, and they will never become Netflix. And, and they're not aspiring to become one of those, right? But one thing that there is a connection here is that if you think of the brands before e-commerce, the face did not matter. It didn't really matter who you are as a founder. It didn't really matter what's your story. You had a product, so this jacket in a relevant size, in a relevant store, at the relevant cost. Consumer was there, okay? Because, through generations, we had to eat, we had to wear clothes, we listened to the music, we bought TVs, So if you think of the innovation in terms of the product, okay, maybe we invented the iPhone. But apart from that, whether e-commerce, no e-commerce, we always had products. So, and there was always consumers. What e-commerce brought is that, first of all, it opened up, like these other platforms, competition became global. So I can now order anything from the US and get it delivered here within 1 day, to be honest. But secondly, because of the competition, we as consumers, and now it's getting even more and more with Gen Zs, start caring outside even organic and natural and all of this. We start caring about the people behind the brand. So who is currently winning it is the people that run e-commerce businesses but fight for attention, okay? So the founders became like movie stars, okay? They became like someone who would go on a Netflix. They became, and if you would apply the same thing that Netflix competes with your sleep, so the same as I tell e-commerce founder, one video of you doing something on YouTube or TikTok is not enough, because maybe that day that video will go viral. Okay, you achieved, maybe we sold, maybe we completely went out of stock. But the same effect could be with Black Friday, we could go out of stock. What does that mean is you as a persona or people in the brand need to start showing your faces. You need to learn to be active, proactive, and good on camera. The answer is well, I'm not good. I don't look good. I'm shy. Don't do e-commerce. Don't. Because it's just your days are counted. Yeah. Because someone will copy your product, and then you will start losing the market share. When you start losing the market share, the marketing budgets will shrink. So eventually, if you are now serving global, you will end up, serving not just United States, but just one state in the United States, right? So you as a person or people in the team have to become celebrities. You have to become an influencer. You can't just rely on influencers anymore. You can't just rely on, sort of people to make your brand. You yourself have to become and start thinking, how do I win the attention of that sleeping consumer using social media channels. This way, you will go viral, and maybe it will take you 1 year, 2 years, but only by doing it and trying, you will start seeing the pattern. And it's exactly how Netflix is getting better and better. Because if they're grabbing your attention, you teach the algorithm, kind of scales. And then the next series they present in front of you, your wife might think it's big as, nonsense, while you yourself, cannot go to sleep till 5 a.m. in the morning. And in Netflix's world, they won the game. Okay, and that's how they survive.
So, yes, and to everything you said. So, yes, what you said. And my controversial thing I was going to say before is this, which is what I was going to say before you just took me down. All these, I love the fresh thinking, is there is, in just the most basic terms, there is the East platforms versus the West platforms. And it's just that simple. I hate to break the world down into that, but I think you're nodding yes. When I was talking to them yesterday and they were saying, so here was part of my discussion. I was saying similar things. I have a very similar approach as you do in the marketing world. But what I was saying is they were like, well, I was saying I can help make some gains. Like I'm not promising the world, but I can make some improvements. And they were like, well, how well do you know Arabic? And how can you do the Arabic thing? And I said, I can't. I'm not like, no, I can't. But that's not what we're talking about here. I'm saying in Dubai, not Abu Dhabi, but in Dubai, there's English. And here's the thing. English is the Western battleground. So we can start moving across the West. And I said, the alternative is you can try to go east, but you're not going to get there because they have a moat. So all the allies moving across the Western platforms and audiences, not one of us is going to do it all. They're like, our market now is half the world, And so I think that's part of what I think is important. The other thing that I think is important about what you said is, and the sleep thing, 100% brilliant. The other thing about celebrities and brands. I spent 10 years, my audience, I grew my audience 10 years. It took me to get to 50,000. And now I'm at 300,000 in the last 3 years. It takes a while. But what also is important there is, to your point, learning how the algorithms work. And the reason you have to have a celebrity at the front is it's becoming more and more the only differentiator. And what I'll say is I lost 65 pounds and got in the gym every single day and stay in the gym because it matters now. We have to be on camera because here's the thing. The generations coming up now, they don't trust computers. They already know the scammers, the bots, the fake things, this or that. So they look for people like that they think they can trust. And you can't trust someone who doesn't exist. You can't trust someone who doesn't show up on camera. You can't trust someone who doesn't have the willingness to have a real relationship with you.
Correct.
And so it's so important. And to your point, we see this, and I'm just saying your world. I remember there was a taco truck and it just marketed on Instagram or on Facebook, whatever, in Los Angeles. And all it did was try to be genuine. Here's who we are. Here's where our location is. Come eat with us. That simple formula built their business entirely. They weren't like tacos, $2 off.
Correct.
It was about who they were. And so that's so important. Everything you just said is so important. I think what I would want to get out of the last couple of minutes here with you is everyone has the potential to become a e-commerce brand now. You have a book. It specializes in the region. You're obviously very savvy about the relationships between humans and machines and markets and cultures. I think I almost never do this on my podcast because I feel like it's inauthentic and it's not what my podcast is for. But I'm breaking my own rules. Can you just please repeat the name of your book? And please tell people, because if the funnel is big, there is a small sliver of people who you can genuinely help quickly. And I would just love for you to say the name of your book again. We'll, of course, put links to your stuff, but who is the 5% of people in the world who just have to talk to you?
Okay, so the book name is Winning in a Platform Economy for GCC brands. So it's like if you type Winning in the Platform Economy, you on Amazon.com, you will see it. But also you could drop me a message. No, the book was not for, let's say, profit purposes. It was more for educational. So happy to drop you a digital version of it. No worries, on LinkedIn. But now talking about who should talk and how and maybe what the...
Because you could help everyone.
Yes. So
but who's that?
So let me, like, maybe as you say 5%. So maybe like I will kind of split into a few buckets, and maybe it's like 0.5% in each, so maybe it's only 3%. But first of all, the brands that don't want profit today. Okay. So let's say you have a bigger vision. That vision, let me, I could name some of them. So one of my clients, a couple of years ago here decided to start a first non-alcoholic drinks marketplace called Drink Dry Store. Okay. The concept didn't exist. The brands didn't exist. No one knew, like, you can't do research, say, will it succeed? Will it fail? I could lose a lot of money. Okay. So yes, there were a lot of no's and maybe just one yes. Why you do it? Because the founder had a vision. Because people who don't drink, and she's Western, who don't drink should also be included in the party.
Yeah, that's
okay.
Yeah, that's me.
So whether you go to, Thanksgiving sort of event, how many Coca-Colas you can drink? Like, you can't. So whether you exercise, and you might be a drinker, but you want to just reduce it. Okay. You also want to be included and maybe hold a champagne glass without everyone asking you, why don't you drink?
Seriously.
Okay. And number 3 would be, you go in Dubai and all the fancy places that we have here, right? And imagine you only have sugary mocktails. You are paying the same price for the experience, for the same steak. And maybe most of the friends are sharing. And most of the time you're sharing the bill, because luckily in the Middle East, most of the people are just kind of, just share it. So it's not about that, I drank less or more, but it's like, I also want to have a glass of champagne. I also want to have a beer. I also want to have a wine glass. And I don't want half of the world asking me, why am I drinking a sugary mocktail? So this sort of brands, they come to me because they want to work and they have a grand idea. They have a funds, sort of maybe sometimes, it's a secondary fund, a third time fund. So they have the funds for the product, let's say, but they don't want to make mistakes by hiring the wrong agency, hiring the wrong team, understanding the market. So I become like a de facto co-founder who's not on shares. I'm not a co-founder, but I would not be like an agency. You tell me and I do. I would be equally discussing with you, and we will together build the success of the company. Okay. So these are the founders. Like, visionary is very cliche word. We could all be visionaries, but founders that they need the ABC, do this, this, and this. And I am, as a founder, willing to do it. Your job is just to tell me and maybe show me, guide me, maybe check when I've done it. So the founder has to work hard. My job is to make sure that you don't lose money, if you have limited funds, in hiring, doing the wrong things, or you don't lose your idea to a competitor who is maybe bigger retailer, because you are failing at ABC. They just saw, wow, this is a great idea. We have all the money, let's pump twice, because they will kill you on meta ads, and that's the reality. So this is the first bucket, and there are a number of success stories, and I can share endlessly, that I work with these clients. I actually work even globally, and I do have that vision. Second is the people that seriously looking at this market. So when I mean seriously, and I believe you will be speaking next week in World F, you will meet a lot of Turkish brands, okay? If you're looking at this a bit related to the topic that we discussed earlier, if you're looking at the Middle East as everyone is rich, we have loads of money, so we will buy every product you have. Well, my friends, let me tell you, we might have the cash, but we have about 1,000 more products in the same category than what you can bring, okay? So you will not surprise us with anything. There is not one thing that I would see here, like, oh, wow, I have never seen it before. Okay, what's on top of it? So you will bring a product, but on top of it, I will tell you, I need same day delivery. I need this price. I need this. And you're like, no, Lina, but we don't do this, in Turkey, in the US, and UK, this is 4 days, people wait. Well, so the brands that should talk to me is that they acknowledge that localization is important and they want to learn what is the cheapest way to meet the Middle Eastern consumer needs. Because, I can introduce, guide, and like set up, and we kind of start month zero with some sort of P&L in mind because we understood they kind of cut their learning curve before they were doing it. They just went with me, and instead of doing and learning from mistakes, we start doing it right, and we don't torn our brand apart. So this is the second bucket.
And the third, we have 1 minute left.
Yeah. And the third bucket, actually, which works for, so imagine you are distributor. You have some great exclusive brands, but you will never build a team in-house. Like, there is no point, if you are doing B2B volumes, I would be silly to push you on B2C and tell you like, oh yeah, tomorrow you will become a millionaire from B2C. So, but remember, you are leaving, and my last comparison to you are leaving the Happy Meal of McDonald's on the table. The Gen Zs and all the TikTok generation at some point will come into spending power. When they come, they will look online. So if you are a traditional distributor, B2B player, even like most of the retailers now have e-commerce, but if you are still sitting and debating digital presence, I am not telling you start selling stationery in volume online. You don't. But having a website, having a catalog, and telling the world in Dubai that you are selling to Walmart in America, it's crucial. So you can do it yourself, and I can tell you it's really important. Or a lot of these sort of large enterprises that are just wants less headache but don't want to leave the Happy Meal, because Happy Meal is the only meal in McDonald's menu that maybe makes a loss. But if they got you on a Happy Meal, believe me, when you go to university, McDonald's does not need to tell you what the M stands for. Okay, everyone knows it. So you as a B2B player must think how to convince these TikTok generation that will become into spending power and leadership positions that will potentially become your B2B consumers. How do they know about you? So you need to be there.
I agree with all of that. I hate to have to wrap it up. I wish we would have had more time, but I will say I worked on the strategy, customer experience strategy for McDonald's, and you are 100% right about that. With that, Lina, thank you so much for being on the show today, and we're going to have to do a follow-up podcast, I think, in the future.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being part of this journey with us. We hope these conversations challenge your thinking and inspire you to explore new paths. There's so much more to discover. Keep listening, dive into more episodes, and let's continue this adventure together.